Once upon a time, in a peaceful coastal village in the southern United States, there lived a young fisherman named Ethan. He was 30 years old, strong, capable, and most of all, deeply devoted to God. One morning, the sky was clear and the sea was calm. Ethan took his boat out to fish, just like he did every day. Before leaving, he bowed his head and prayed, "Lord, please bless this trip and keep me safe." With his heart at peace, Ethan set sail. And sure enough, things went just as he'd hoped. Within a few hours, his boat was filled with fish. He looked up, smiled, and whispered, "Thank you, Lord, you are so kind." But not long after, dark clouds suddenly gathered. A violent storm rolled in. Winds howled, waves roared, and the sea turned wild. Ethan fought to steer his small boat, but it was no use. Nature was too powerful. His boat was completely destroyed by the raging sea. Struggling in the water, Ethan cried out, "God, why would you let this happen? I prayed, I trusted you." Then everything went black. He was swept away by the waves. By the grace of God, a miracle happened. When Ethan came to, he found himself washed up on the shore of a deserted island, soaked, exhausted, but alive. Relief didn't last long. As he looked around, Ethan realized he was completely alone. No boat, no people, no signs of life. Facing the reality of his situation, he dropped to his knees and prayed again. "Lord, please help me. Send someone. Rescue me." He even built a small wooden cross from 2 sticks, planting it firmly in the sand as a reminder of his faith. Every day he knelt before it, praying for rescue and strength to endure. Days passed, but no help came. Each night, Ethan slept on the beach. Every morning he prayed again for rescue, but still nothing happened. After several days of this, he gave up hope of being rescued and accepted his fate of living alone on the desolate island. Determined to survive, Ethan began gathering wood and grass. He built a small hut for shelter and collected items from the wreckage of the ship. He survived by eating coconuts and catching fish, spending his days in solitude inside the hut. One day, Ethan lit a fire and went into the forest to find food. When he returned, he was horrified to see that his hut was engulfed in flames. All his belongings had been destroyed. Heartbroken and angry, he looked up to the sky and cried out, "Oh God, I asked you for help and you didn't answer. I built a hut with so much effort and you burned that too. Why are you so cruel?" In a moment of rage and heartbreak, Ethan ripped the cross from the ground and hurled it into the sea, shouting at the sky as tears streamed down his face. He spent the entire night complaining to God in bitterness and despair, eventually falling asleep on the sand. The next morning, Ethan was awakened by a loud noise. When he opened his eyes, he saw a ship anchored near the shore. He couldn't believe his eyes. Help had finally come. Overjoyed, he ran to the ship and was brought aboard. Once on the ship, Ethan asked the captain, "How did you know I was stranded on this deserted island?" The captain replied, "We saw the fire signal coming from the island. That's how we knew someone was here." Ethan was confused and said, "But I didn't send any fire signal." The captain smiled and said, "We came only after seeing the fire." At that moment, Ethan remembered his burning hut. What he had seen as a tragedy was actually the very signal that brought help. He finally understood. It was all part of God's plan. The fire that had destroyed his hut was the same fire that saved his life. He looked up with tears in his eyes and thanked God, realizing that God's plan was far greater than his own. In life, we all make plans, but often, things don't go the way we want. What we hoped for doesn't happen, and what does happen makes no sense at all. We try to understand everything with our limited minds, And when things fall apart, our faith starts to shake. Patience wears thin. Hope fades. We start to question God. But it's in those moments that we must hold on tighter, because God's plan is always bigger. In a world of over 7 billion people, He has a purpose for each of us. If we keep trying, keep trusting, and keep the faith, His grace will carry us through. So the next time your plans fall apart, when everything seems to go wrong, remember this. Maybe God has a different plan for you, and His plan is always greater, stronger, and far better than anything you could have imagined.